Thomas Jefferson, 3rd President of the United States of America, by Matthew M. Thomas Jefferson was born April 13, 1743, at Shadwell Plantation in Western Virginia. He started boarding school at the age of 9 and continued until he was about 16. He attended the College of William and Mary, where he studied subjects such as mathematics, science, and literature. From 1762 to 1767, he pursued legal studies under George White, who taught John Marshall and Henry Clay. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, with his most famous line, "All men are created equal." From 1776 to 1779, he was a member of the Virginia House of Delegates. Thomas Jefferson was also the governor of Virginia during the Revolutionary War. He was a Secretary of State under President Washington. Domestic affairs, military reductions, and Alien and Sedition Acts. Thomas Jefferson cut the army into 2 regiments, one infantry and the other artillery. He also made similar reductions in the Navy. Thomas Jefferson repealed the Alien and Sedition Acts and released the 10 victims who were still in prison under these acts during the presidency of John Adams. Domestic affairs, Judiciary Acts. Thomas Jefferson repealed the Judiciary Act of 1801. A major case during his presidency, Marbury v. Madison, stated that the Judiciary Act of 1789 unconstitutional because the courts had the power to deny writs of mandamus. Domestic affairs, Louisiana Territory. Thomas Jefferson made a major purchase during his presidency. This was the Louisiana Territory. He purchased the territory from the French leader at the time, Napoleon, who was fighting the British. He purchased the Louisiana Territory for about $15 million, after which the national debt fell from $80 million to about $57 million. Foreign affairs, Barbary pirates and Louisiana Territory. Thomas Jefferson fought the Barbary pirates who demanded pay to stop attacks on U.S. merchant ships during his presidency. Jefferson bought the Louisiana Territory for around $15 million, double the size of the country. During this transaction, he outfitted a 25-man group to explore the newly bought land, led by Secretary Meriwether Lewis and Army Captain William Clark. This expedition took 2.5 years to cover 8,000 miles. Impressment and embargo. During Thomas Jefferson's presidency, the British began seizing U.S. ships and forcing sailors to join the Royal Navy. These people they seized were probably abandoners from Britain because they were at war with the French at the time. In the summer of 1807, British warship Leopard shot and killed 3 U.S. sailors on board the American naval frigate Chesapeake. Jefferson stopped all trade from Europe and banned British ships from U.S. ports. This was called the Embargo Act of 1807. The Embargo Act hurt U.S. economy the most by dropping the exports from $108 million to $22 million. Life and legacy. Thomas Jefferson started the quarter-century rule of the Virginia dynasty. This change of parties, when he was put into office, will eventually lead to the split of the Republicans to Old Republicans and National Republicans. This split was caused by beliefs on how government should be. He was known for his strong hostility towards central government. He also wrote the Declaration of Independence, and his most notable line in Thomas Jefferson's career would be, "All men are created equal."
do? Well, really well at first. Jefferson got rid of all the taxes except for the tariff, especially the whiskey tax, and then when he woke up with a terrible, cheap whiskey-induced hangover, he paid off part of the national debt, he shrunk the army and the navy, and basically made sure that America wouldn't become a centralized English-style state for at least the next 60 years. Low taxes and small government sounds great, but no navy? That would be tough, especially when we needed ships and marines to fight the Barbary pirates on the shores of Tripoli, who kept capturing our ships in the Mediterranean and enslaving their crews. This is yet another example of how foreign affairs keeps getting in the way of domestic priorities. In this case, the domestic priority of not wanting to spend money on a navy. Also, vitally, Jefferson's presidency really marks the last time in American history when a Republican president didn't want to spend money on the military. Don't get me wrong, Democrats can do it too. I'm looking at you, LBJ. As much as he wanted to get rid of any trace of the Federalists, Jefferson found himself thwarted by that eminently conservative and undemocratic institution, the Supreme Court. Jefferson appointed Republicans to most government positions, but he couldn't do anything about the Supreme Court because they served for life. And since the country was only like 12 years old, they were all still pretty fresh. Most important among them was Chief Justice John Marshall, who happened to be a Federalist. Marshall was Chief Justice basically forever, and is without question the most important figure in the history of the Supreme Court. He wrote a number of key opinions, but none was more important than the 1803 decision in Marbury versus Madison. Marbury versus Madison is so important because in that decision, the Supreme Court gave itself the power of judicial review, which allows it to uphold or invalidate federal laws. The court then extended this power to state laws in Fletcher versus Peck, and eventually even to executive actions. Like, we think of the main job of the Supreme Court being to declare laws unconstitutional, but that power isn't anywhere.
Thank you for watching. This concludes my presentation.
I love it.
Bye-bye.